Welcome back, everyone. We have a ton to talk about today because once upon a time, an expansion would launch and then it would be months of silence, right? Some immediate bugs would be fixed, but then Blizz would go away into the workshop and we would be stuck with whatever we had. Classes were often the worst victims of this, but thankfully not this time because in the first minor patch, we're actually getting full spec and talent tree reworks. Some of them actually look kind of fantastic, but before I dig into that, there's a whole ton of minor hotfixes that are live in-game right now and we've got to cover. The Great Vault will be a bit easier to fill from delves, so it used to take 12 delves to fill all of the boxes, but now it's just 8, and the vault boxes have moved from 2, 4, 8 down from 3, 6, 12. That's pretty big, and if you're serious about gearing, filling this will feel mandatory at the start. You know, air quotes, mandatory. Now, 12 delves, of course, might only be an hour or two, but that still is quite a lot. I think Blizzard have likely seen the specter of Torghast hanging over this, where Torghast had well-received elements in beta, but it just ended up a chore as soon as it was tied to progression, when people were just doing it weekly for their legendary currency. Now, of course, delves don't have as much of a risk. They're shorter, they're more fun, they're just one way of many to get gear. It's not like they're the single way to get a vital currency, so I'm not super worried about this anyway, but I think dropping it down to 8 certainly helps the grind, and that's nice. Then related to that, we've got Bran bug fixes and improvements. Basically, he's a bit more dodgy, a bit less responsive, and he breaks less often. He still does break a bit. And look, we've all seen reports of Bran being a bit useless, leaving your group, just being all over the place. Blizzard obviously wants him to be a key part of the delve experience, so I would expect these fixes to keep on happening, because even if you can finish delves just fine, they will be more fun if he feels like an active, helpful, bug-free party member, and that may just matter when we're actually going into those harder delves when the season drops. Then there's a big update for the alt levelers. Instead of just the 4 leveling dungeons, alts who skip the intro to start adventure mode will now have access to all 8 War Within dungeons, so that's pretty sweet. Then, if your lamplight or satchels have been downgraded from purple to green and you've been worried, the good news is you don't have to worry. Basically, Blizzard realized they make no sense being purple because they don't contain that much. Nothing's changed about their contents, the label's just more descriptive. Then the next one's kind of funny. So, Earthen can't eat food because they're made of stone. Now, they have a passive that lets them eat a gem for a permanent well-fed buff, but there's 2 problems there. Number 1, they can't pick a main stat buff, so they're just nerfed compared to regular food eaters, and 2, they can't eat or drink, so healers actually weren't able to restore mana in between pulls. That would certainly be a problem in Mythic. Plus, the good news is both have been solved via hotfixes, so Blizzard buffed their buff, so their buff isn't a nerf, and then Belga and Dornegal sells gems that they can eat to restore mana. So now all Blizzard really need to do is fix how weak their Azerite Surge ratio is, and that'll be that. Then, is it rude to leave a heroic early if the boss doesn't drop the thing you want? Well, we all might have an opinion on that, but Blizzard's answer is definitely yes. And here's what happened. Somebody discovered that the sack brood from Arakara's first boss was BIS for almost every spec. It was that good, which of course meant an epidemic of players queuing and then leaving right after that boss. That of course leaves the rest of the party just waiting for somebody to fill in the spot. That's not a great experience, so to solve this, Blizzard have changed the deserter debuff to apply whenever you leave dungeons early, even if you have killed a boss, because previously it was only if you left before a boss was killed, which doesn't really help in this case. And the funny thing is, we've been here before during the Legion expansion. Back then, profession items were in dungeons, and some people would just leave after picking them up. So what Blizzard did is they added a quest requirement to also kill the last boss to stop that. This has got some people saying that in dungeons we should just get our loot from a chest at the end. I understand that pragmatically, but I don't know. It's an RPG, and there is just something about picking up loot from the corpse of a box that I don't want to lose. Anyway, next, patch 11.0.5 is on the PTR, and Blizzard have revealed some big class changes, and certainly if your hunter has been a bit let down by one of your hero talents, I may have good news. Also, as an experiment, we posted this, a monster recap of the news over in Bellular.games. Who knows, maybe that'll be a weekly newsletter for the Warcraft side of things. I don't know, but over there you also get the Reworking podcast, you get guide content like our keybinding deep dive and our multi-character tool that comes along with that, as well as ad-free versions of all of our videos. It's also the #1 way to support our team. We're always trying to build more there, and of course it'll help you enjoy WoW without, having algorithms all over the place. But okay, let's talk about the PTR notes and updates. These are pretty cool. So, class reworks. Balance absolutely needed the most fixing. They were just disappointing last we checked. So, looking here, not all is perfect, but there are good targeted fixes. Starfall is baseline and some 2-pointers are down to 1 point, and a big issue was the low skill ceiling. So we've actually got some talents that just add new interactions to play around. That'll be good. There's just more meat in the bone. Then they've got Circle of Life and Death back for some faster dots, and they've got an option for their major cooldown every 75 seconds with 2 charges, plus a passive version of their AoE mushrooms. Taking a look at the layout then, then the changes with points should give you a little bit more flexibility, and maybe Boomy mains will notice like problems here with the new layout that I can't see, but at least to our eyes, it does seem that this is off to a strong enough start. Then Hunters. So BM and MM are getting similar, but on a smaller scale. Beast Mastery gets automatic Cobra shots and a new damage window that is procced by them, as well as an AoE kill shot that gets better when you've got more pets active. Cobra even reduces the cooldown of Barbed Shot, and Barbed Shot has actually had its cooldown and duration increased. So altogether, that's basically making the spec a bit more interactive and intertwined. Then for Marksmanship, man, it's like, again, surgical changes, but they feel big. The change is that steady focus is kept with one steady shot cast instead of two. Then precise shots has lost the S. It's just precise shot. It grants one stack instead of two. That's pretty damn big, and that has led to Blizzard removing the talent that existed to fix the issues that cropped up during true shots, so that's pretty smart. Then Survival has got a few smart changes as well. Fury of the Eagle is now faster, stronger, and it generates tip of the spear stacks. Ain't a full rework, but certainly lovely changes. For the Paladins then, great news, the long overdue class tree rework is here, and it's honestly incredible. Divine Steed is 6 seconds baseline, and there is bonus movement speed everywhere. That's awesome. Then the reordering has made some key talents like Divine Toll a little bit easier to get, and well, here's the best of, right? You can now Divine Shield through Forbearance. Blessing of Sacrifice can auto-apply to low HP allies, Lay on Hands can ignore heal reductions, Selfless Healer is back, and all that just means that Paladins are kind of massively upgraded as off healers in every spec, so that's just amazing for the Paladin fantasy. I'm really happy with that. Then, Arcane Mages, you get a few changes that look a little bit disheartening. One of them is the bugged interaction with Nether Precision being removed, and that's happened after players fought tooth and nail to keep the thing in beta because they felt it ended up being more fun. The other things, though, do look fine, as an example, having guaranteed Lay Drinker, so we'll see how it balances out. Then, Mistweavers, good news, you can rejoice because, well, your already fantastic spec has got nice touch-ups. Ancient Teachings is baseline, and it transfers damage from Crackling Jade Lightning. Ancient Concordance, which is the stomp healing transfer talent, that's actually being replaced by a simple one that just buffs the core teachings a lot after you press Stomp or Thunder Tea. And if you don't like that, Rising Sun Kick has got a replacement that kicks up Mists to do AoE damage instead. But then on the range front, there's a new talent to give Lightning a 1000% buff and hit AoE instead. So if you go for that, I mean, that's pretty big, and that with the baseline buffs for it mean that ranged damage and healing with that damage may just be a bit more viable now, so I think that'll be pretty nice. Then the last big wave is for the Shamans. So Elemental, you guys get loads of changes. As an example, a total rework to Ascendance, which of course will go with the nice new Ascendance visuals you've got, and then there's targeted talents that bring specific things like Lava Burst, Lightning Rod, and your Maelstrom Spenders up. Ice Fury has now got more AoE focus, and it's a bit less useful for movement, and moving on to the Enhancement Shamans, you're not really being left behind. You got neat things too, like passive Feral Spirit summoning, and another neat one where Chain Lightning can turn Flame Shock into an explosive AoE Tremor Shock instead of just manually spreading Flame Shock, so that's pretty nice. Then Ice Strike is now a procced Frost Shock replacement instead of its own button, so that's great for consolidation. Doomwinds is now a big AoE Storm as well as a self buff, and for the non-weak auras users, Blizzard have actually done a huge wave of changes to the animations, the UI overlays, and the spell effects for enhancement while they're at it, which will be pretty big, because as much as it feels like everybody uses weak auras, I have a feeling the vast majority of players actually don't, and so for them that'll be pretty transformational. Now, Rogues, I wish I could bring you amazing news. I can't. You don't have a full rework, but you do have some tiny things fixed. As an example, Sub is losing Sepsis and Invigorating Shadow Dust. So that's nice, but there is still a lot to do. Then, some minor but nice changes. All Shadowlands abilities that are still in the game have got new icons that better match their classes. So, you're, say, like Divine Toll, well, that actually looks more like a Paladin thing now, so that's definitely nice. Then there's some great news, actually, where the new Drakthir class options, they can fight without shifting out of their Visage form, so I guess that just means you, can be another weird type of elf. So yeah, if you love elves, I mean, WoW really is spoiling you for choice at this stage. Anyway, let's get on to some other stuff that's actually real impactful. Hero talents. Some of them are getting way larger changes than I think we expected. Deathbringer for the Death Knights is getting new talents and effect changes. Some look great, but it may be a nerf, so we'll need to see how it shakes out. But what's real big is the Dark Ranger has been hugely reworked. Black Arrow is no longer a new button, it's now a kill shot replacement, and everything operates around it. So it's based on the opening burst, the execution window, and deathblow procs. Pretty sick. Then Shamans get all three just being slightly updated and looking a bit better. So altogether, right, we're seeing some key hero talent improvements, some key class improvements. There is still lots to do, yes, and this is probably a lot of the dregs of beta feedback actually making it onto live because, well, when you're like 2 or 3 weeks before shipping, you just have to draw a line under things and focus on like stability and solving bugs and that kind of thing. Altogether then, this is pretty crazy for the patch after launch. I mean, this is way bigger than we usually get in a 0.5 patch. Of course, that's me referring to all of the other content that's coming. A lot of this will just be the dregs of beta feedback finally being acted on, but again, they just have a way better cadence. So I guess I've got more confidence in the game as a player. I guess if Demon Hunters and Rogues can maybe get their reworks in 11.07 or 11.1, then this may end up being one of the best expansions for class changes. Next then, let's talk about some gameplay and systems related news. And the first one is Warbound gear. So in short, every time the game considers giving you some gear, it may also give you a second bit of gear that is intended for your alts. Now this means dungeon bosses, raid bosses, delve boxes, they've got a second separate bonus roll for Warbound until equipped gear. Let's shorten this to WUE gear, and the goal basically is that you just ship this directly to your alts or you just store it in your Warband bank until it's needed in one of your other characters. Now, this gear is independent, right? It's independent of your actual chance of getting the, gear for your main character from a bit of content, and it's usually one full track below the real loot. So as an example, if you're doing a heroic raid boss and it drops Hero 2 gear, then it will drop Champion 2 Warbound until equipped gear from the same loot table. That's a big thing. It's not just a random little box. No, it's from the same loot table, and that means it'll be pretty useful in your characters. Now, the exceptions are final bosses, which can drop anything from that raid or dungeon, and for mythic raids, they can only drop up to Champion 4, and that's just because Blizzard don't want you to have like a fully hero-geared character without actually playing it, which does make sense, but in a way could be a weird choice because you will be starving for crests and stones without grinding in that character anyway. And you may have found some of this gear already. As an example, Warbound until equipped Adventurer gear from the first Lamplighter satchel of each week and from some rares. That's just this system in action. So that's pretty good. The next thing then is some secret renown, because it turns out, yes, there is a secret source of renown in the game, but it may cost you your restored coffer keys. Will that be worth it to you? Maybe, maybe not. People discovered that whenever they use keys in Bountiful Delves, they get a one-time bonus amount of renown. Now, Wowhead reports that their best guess is this. Whenever you use a key, it rolls between 1 and 4 to pick a renown. If you've not gotten a bonus for that one yet, then it will give you 1,002 renown, and yes, there's a 2 there, and that's a bit awkward. Anyway, it'll then give you an extra 50 for every tier above 1 that delve was. Of course, if you already got the bonus, then you'll get nothing, unless you've done a higher tier, in which case it will add a 50 rep per tier bonus. Now, of course, getting this renown could be a bit awkward, because what if you say clear a rank like a tier 7 delve, but then it rolls a 3, and then you just don't get any bonus, right? It's kind of weird how they've implemented that. Basically, I wouldn't focus on how it actually works, just know that you'll get renown naturally as you do delves and you use your keys. Now, the best way to do this right now, if you've got loads of alts and you don't care about gearing them and they've got loads of keys, is to just start doing those on tier 3 delves right now. So you could do that for some rep now. Otherwise, though, the intent of this strange system is pretty clear. It's just bonus renown for clearing higher tier delves. Now, before I point you to the next video, a quick little tip. The renown gate for the main campaign has just been outright deleted, so if you started this expansion late and you've not hit renown 4 with all of the factions, don't worry, you can just log in, do the leveling campaign, get to level 80, and then do the rest of the story right away, allowing you to just play it as sort of one big continuous campaign. But it's not it for the Warcraft news. There is so much more going on, and to learn about that, you can check out this video next.